Okay, welcome to the restorative bones today. We're going to start with our familiar props, which is a chair and a wall. That's the main idea behind the pattern of support and integration. So you'll lower down on your back with your feet onto the chair. And we're going to start, and I don't think it would be that mellow, but it is going to be kind of a concentration on the breathing as a strength practice. At some point in your life, that could be what you're going to work with, is using your breath as your strength practice. Might as well get ready for that, huh? So I got my knees with a ball between them. And when you feel your feet on the chair, it could be on the very edge, or it could be the heels little bit resting on the top. I'm going to prefer the edge, so I have something that I feel I can push towards and not slide. So let's bring the arms so that they are open, and they can be in a bending shape. They could be in an extending straight open, depending on your spatial ability besides you. But using that breath as kind of feeling the abdomen as it lifts on the inhale. It actually moves down, right? The diaphragm moves down to the abdominal organs, massages that area. So when you do that pattern, I want you to just squeeze the ball. And let's say you don't have a ball, you could use a block. That would still be something you could push into. But I want you to get a feel that when you inhale, you're squeezing, and you're also getting the abdomen to move down and lift your diaphragm. And then as you exhale, relax the grip on the ball, come to neutral, and just feel the abdomen rest back into its kind of its earth position, the centered position. Inhale, squeeze, and exhale, center. Now that strength practice of just simply squeezing into the item between the knees doesn't need to be just about squeezing. It's also about the motion of the tummy. And then the centering is that the hip flexors really do need to just rest back. So let's try bring the arms back behind, straight back. If this is too much on your shoulders, your arms could also be in that cactus position. But as you push into the chair, you're going to lift the hips up, and no worries about exact movement of the stomach or squeezing anything, because it's going to happen on its own here. You won't even have to spend energy on pushing something around in your body. It'll happen when you lift and lower. So when you lower the spine down in alternating bridge pose, I want you to lower your arms down by your sides. Feel the gentle arch of the spine, the tilt of the pelvis, and then inhale, push into your feet, lift your hips up. There's absolutely no rush. And kind of the beauty of being in your home for the practice, you could go very slow with this and see if you can use your breath as part of the strength component of this lift and lower. It is the most advanced work, right? The breathing work. So it might not even surface for you today, or some days it does, some days it doesn't. But as you lift and lower, notice if you can relate to the ball between the knees. Just get a feel if that can be basically a spacer. So you're not really trying to force your leg muscles into it. Okay. Yeah, I observed, like, you do weight work on a leg press machine. This is a good one if you could use something like this small ball between the knees, so you can really work your glutes and work both hips in proportion, right, in balance. Okay, last time with the ball between the knees. And feel if you roll back and you feel one shoulder different than the other, so be it. But as you spinal down, you're going to bring the knees in and take the ball out. See if you can mimic that spacing just kind of on your own. You can close your eyes and maybe you feel awareness that there's something between them, but go without. And then get a block. I want you to have two. And I'm kind of playing the last day or so about my distancing with my seat and my legs, distancing from the how far away I am from my chair. I might change it up here and there just to kind of feel that I'm working on elongating places, not squeezing them together. So you're going to lift your hips up and tuck a block. It's got to be a block. The ball would probably be just a little too squishy. You can do one block that's at the mid height and then lower your pelvis on that. If you want to go a little bit more, what I want you to do is to get a feel of your body with not too much blanket. I would make sure the blanket is right under your skull, but nowhere near your shoulders. So you're not going to be rolling your neck to keep the blanket. That's the idea, is I don't want to be trying to use my blanket to hold me up. And then I lift, it's just a cushion. And I'm going to try to use two blocks so they're stacked flat, or they're low height. And then as I move my back of my pelvis onto those blocks, you need to find that your blocks are high enough on the buttocks, right? They're not going to be into your ribs at all. But you need to get a feel that, okay, my pelvis is on the blocks. Okay, then I get my legs to go straight up. So I lift the legs into reverse action. So legs up. And I'm going to kind of visualize that I've got like half the size of that ball between my knees so that there's some separation, and see if I can resist the idea. Now you can have, again, one block or two, and I resist the idea of striving to get my legs taller, but I'm working on the kind of the stiffness of them so they're very toned, not over-toning them. And then there's always this kind of circulation flush from this type of pose. But you know, if you try to stiffen up your feet or point or flex, it's kind of hard for things to kind of drain through. So I suppose the word stiffen is probably not going to help you out. So I did mention that a moment, but I want you to just let the legs just be kind of, if they had something that they're hanging from in the ceiling, right? They just kind of dangle down, right? They're a special art project in your house. Hanging down, a feature, but there happens to be the hips right at the center. And if you feel like letting the leg kind of flow a little bit out, back to center, go for it. But explore when the arms are down by your side, so they're not open, right? You're always kind of patterning the experience also of the shoulders centering back, which is actually opening the chest. Even if it's a very wisp of chest opening, it's a nice challenge for your breathing muscles. And just give it a few more moments. We'll keep the blocks. If you need to change the height, go for it. If there's any discomfort in your back with the position, then you just go down a little bit. Maybe one block, maybe you tilt it back to flat. Feel the breath, again, as a strength practice, because you're upside down. So the diaphragm has to work with that resistance. Okay, bend through the legs and lower them down to the chair. Now, I've got some distance from my chair. I'm just again playing with feeling my limbs reaching and the pose, the pathway. So you might want to be closer to the chair for this one. You might decide, okay, I'll move a little closer. Maybe you like to be farther away, but with the back muscles centering, I can get my shoulder experience to be just a little different from when it was like this, right? This has more pressure into my upper back sphere. And then when I lower my legs, it's as if the pressure now moves a little bit to my arms. And who doesn't want to like get a feeling of this arm value for this support? Maybe you don't, but it's nice to have the value of arms in this position. Okay, so my shoulders are trying to stay back and down, and it's more of a dynamic bridge pose with the chair. Okay, give a few moments of in and out breath and feel how the movement of the torso. You can relax your feet. And just feeling where the awareness, maybe it's focused in the front, maybe you feel where it's pushing into the props, right? Sometimes you can feel the challenges like the leg on the chair, the position of the block. Okay, now access bending the knees, the feet on the chair. Now I have my feet a little bit more of the bottom of my foot is kind of scooping up the side of the chair. So it's kind of scooping around. I guess it's not scooping up, but scoops kind of around it. So you're using the flexibility of your foot a little bit, which I think is fabulous, right? Using our, starting to use that in our feet in the practice. And so as I push into the chair, I lift up the hips, and we're going to take reclining pigeon. So I like to give you that cue so you can, kind of prepare how your spine might lower down. So I'm going to lower down so I can get the very base, which my spine at the base feels kind of more like, it's like a thick brick, right? In the middle, you can feel the connection of the ribs. And then at the base, it kind of thuds down, okay? So it's, as I shift, I'm gonna get a little closer to the chair because I kind of like this position where I have, well, I think they're both good. You can be a little bit away, you can be close. Finally analyzing these things, but what we'll do is we're gonna take brief reclining pigeon. Right foot crosses to the left knee, right knee is kind of positioned open, and your spine is flat. This is pretty flat spine position. Now it's different than when we're in our seated or sleeping pigeon, mostly because the spine would be arched in that, right? And pretty much, it's going to be challenged in a different way. So in this one, right, my knee doesn't go quite as far out. If I'm, in a kneeling position, bring my knee forward, it's a different balance in my hip joint. So you could use your block and press on the right inner leg. You might just accept what you got and just kind of feel for your hip. Okay. So you could just get a feel that your hip points are balanced. I don't want you to have the right hip too hiked up. So I'm just pointing my index fingers on the front of my hip bone just to be sure. This will be important when we do some chair stuff today on seated. So I'm going to try to really lengthen my back now. And then as I reach for a belt, we're going to take the belt under the right foot and stretch it up. And the left leg could stay the same. It could stay bending. It could release on a chair. If you like to let the leg relax onto the chair, you might get a little bit closer. You could kind of push your heel into the chair seat and kind of drag yourself a little closer to the chair. It just depends on your calf kind of mushiness. Sometimes the calf can be pretty toned, and so you can't really relax your leg on the chair as much. So you might prefer here, bending. So, some days you got to mush your calf maybe. Just mush is different on a chair seat. So holding mushy calves, holding the belt under the right foot, and then really work on what your range of motion is with a soft knee and feeling where its side of your back is lengthening. So as the right leg motions back, let your abdomen move with the breath. Yeah, and I'm kind of gripping with my fingers a bit. So I'm going to slide my elbows down or my hands down on the belt so my elbows are onto the floor. And just observe. It's a little more simple when your arms are not trying to get your foot, your hands aren't reaching high up. You accept what you got. You know, as you aim that centerpiece of the leg, it's easy to get the knee anchored in the middle for this one compared to standing poses, right? So feel the leg resist the belt a little bit. See if you can let that right foot push a little forward. Now, some of you might have your hands up higher because you like that. I'm going to keep it kind of disciplined here to see just how I do. So as the foot pushes away, what happens for me is my hamstring, you know, starts to fire a bit. It gets some tone. I can feel the strength kind of firing into the muscle, right? Versus flexibility. Okay, so get a feeling of the centerpiece. And then I want you to, you can keep the leg the same on the chair or the knee bending foot at the chair. Then I want you to take your right hand to hold the belt and actually keep the left hand now on the left front hip bone. This left leg has to stay anchored, whether the knee is, you know, the foot is on the chair and the leg is resting. So either way, let the right leg move out to the right side and try to keep this left hip and the buttock resting down. I find I kind of almost need a sandbag here to keep this anchored. Okay, now as you feel your leg move out, can you lengthen through the spine? Can't do much of a pelvic tilt on this one because it's probably a little shaky. And it might even be more shaky if you don't bring the leg all the way out. Then you've got resistance. Come back, center, take Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees out on the chair edge, Supta Baddha. And as the knees are out, that leg on that right side, that inner leg probably feels maybe a titch different. It's probably not a large change. Okay, now the back arches just naturally, you can't really help it. Bring the right knee to point up, foot at the chair, left foot crosses up to the right knee to reclining pigeon on left side. And again, you could, now that you're kind of familiar with your back flat on the ground, you could let your arms relax out to the sides. You could use a block and press it to that left leg, but just avoid pushing the knee itself, just on the muscle on the inside of the thigh. You know, the only danger of that is it kind of skews the spine, the sacroiliac area, the lower back, kind of skews it, veers it to the left, right? So I want to just find simple and accept that. Like, this is my range of motion today, or for this moment. Yeah, if your right foot is kind of in the middle of the chair, maybe you need to, you know, kind of look in your peripheral vision and move it a little to the right so you're not tilting your SI joint. This is good stuff to really stabilize our lower back. Okay, and if the blanket's too low at this point, right, this is where the poses shift a little bit with height. You could bring it in a little higher. We're not doing bridge lifts and lowers, so it's not going to impact the pressure of your chin towards your chest quite as much. That feels more comfortable. Now take a belt, reach it under the left foot, scoop up the foot, lift up the leg, and we're focusing on pure awareness of the back of the left leg. So remember when we had the legs just up, we didn't have any belts on the feet, no sand. And the idea was just letting that circulation flush. So kind of feel the flesh flush. It's like a flesh flush. And when you pull the leg, which is just fine, I mean, you like to feel like you get some stretch. Does it feel better to hold, you know, kind of middle on the belt? Does it feel okay to put your elbows down, or is that just not enough? So I would go either one, whatever works. And if the right knee is kind of swinging out, you might put the leg on the chair or the part that fits. Maybe you got one calf that's mushier than the other. Yeah, or you can use the chair to kind of massage your calf. Feel where your muscles pull, where your arm muscles pull. You can always close your eyes. Focus on not only the strength of breath, but also the serenity that can come from breathing deep, slow, Yeah, taking a pause on any of the poses and a little mini break is always encouraged, so you enjoy your practice. Okay, now when you let that grip of the belt connect to just the left hand, you might get a feeling of similar tone. Okay, so when I let that left leg go out to the side, I have a little more challenge when my right leg is just reaching on the chair seat. But I kind of tilt to the left here. I'm kind of rolling into my left buttock. So if I bend the knee, put the foot on the chair, then I'm a little more stable in my pelvis. But you can tell this is pretty basic pattern. If you get tired in your back with the hold of the belt, just see if you can line up the feeling of your spine all the way to your brainstem. Do the deep work, right? The resistance work. It's temporary, right? You'll make it to feeling, oh, maybe a little more balanced and tone or upright. And then bring that left leg back through to center. Okay, and then when you come back out, I want you to get a feeling of pulling and then slide the belt off the foot. Bring yourself to that Supta Baddha Konasana, the cobbler, and you'll have your feet together, your knees out, and see if there's any symmetry here from the last two shapes, maybe a minor amount, and that's fine. But this pattern will kind of it'll inform the next pattern, of course. That's kind of how we roll with this. So as the knees move back into center, I encourage you to roll to a side to come out. So use a gentle, persuasive motion to sit up and unfold your blanket unless it's already flat. Pull it in next to the foot of the chair. I would be pretty close to it. Again, not close enough so that my rear can touch the blanket. My whole rear is going to fit. It's not going to fit your whole leg or anything, but just your rear. Chair is against the wall. I think you want to still have it pushed up to it. And then bend the left knee. So it's kind of half of that last pose we did. Use a ball under the knee if that feels comfy. We're not going to do any severe twisting where you have to close the knee, have more knee closure. So maybe this ball feels kind of nice on this outer surface of the knee. And then add a sandbag to the left side. So we're all left knee bending, right leg to the wall. Unless you need to go other side to start, it's perfectly fine. We only have two sides, so that's positive. Okay, so I'm gonna play a bit with my left foot touching the foot of the chair and my right foot pushing into the wall. The toes are out, foot is parallel, so to speak. So some of you will want to put your left foot on the right thigh, and that's a little more of the discipline that you would follow in an asana practice. I'm doing this just to see how it feels on my knee, like if it kind of opens it up. Might as well do some knee health work. So we rotate gently. So I want you to get a feel of how the ribs basically maybe lift slightly or they kind of drop down. I mean, your whole rib, this whole like barrel, right? It only stays upright with your breath. Otherwise you would just kind of be downward. So hold on to the right knee with your left knee, with your right hand. Turn the waist. And if if your foot is not on the chair, the foot of the chair, that's fine. It could be touching the right leg. But rotate and let that visual sense, maybe you're not looking with your eyes, can't really see inside your inside the skin, but use that inner lens to sense the rotation and the pressure with the foot at the wall. And that is informative for how you can rotate to the left. Because you want to have some touch to the wall. Keep that rotation value in the ribs. That gives you some momentum in the middle. Okay, and now bring the right arm to the chair. Okay, if you're a little taller, right, this will be easy to touch the chair. If you're not, what you could do to help out is you could put another blanket under your seat. You know, FYI for this one, if you can't get through arm on the chair. But when you lean into the chair, you can either hold the arm of the chair. I just want you to be a little careful about that because we don't want to do some weird torquing with our hand or our shoulder joint. I'm content with my arm on the chair. I don't need to force more, but you might want more. You might want to hold the back bar of the chair like this. Just be careful you don't slam your hand into the wall, but that's kind of an interesting version if you've got a long arm. But have your head maybe onto your hand, and then that left arm is wrapping around your back. Okay, so it's not lifting on this version, it's around your back. And if the right sitting bone is strong and steady, push into the foot of the wall. And I hope the toes are up, but you probably think they're up. They could be in, they could be turning out. See what you can make of that without staring them down. Okay, just give a few moments. We'll take a peek at them and see if your foot is toes up. Okay, get a feeling of leaning into that chair. So you still have that lift of the ribs, you got the spine tilting, and balance the in and out breath. You know, at some point you kind of relax how much you push into the wall. So I want you to feel your weight into your right seat. Okay, so that right side of the spine has a little more resistance right now, like weight bearing, because you're pushing over to the right. So now when you lift your head up, be kind of kind with how can you kind of nudge your head back up. And when you turn to the chair, I'm going to peek under and see if my toes are up. Yeah, they worked. It worked out. Okay, so another way you can work with that is kind of use, if you have a little back bar of the chair. I just find that could be interesting too with my ankle stretching, you know, moving the ankle threads. And let's take a seated cross-legged position. So simple seated cross-legged. So have the right knee bent underneath, turn to your chair seat and move the sand to the right thigh. Simple cross-legged, seated forward bend. If you need a ball, you just use it. You don't need to switch the blanket much unless it's too low. You can always bring up more blanket or grab your other one. It makes it easier, right? If you were sitting on a bolster or blanket, but I'm trying to encourage us to find that inner lift. But if you're rounding a lot and you just can't get the lift, then sit on more height. Okay, so take it forward to the chair seat. Get a feel. I know this seems like a barely reaching, but I'm working on just finding my sitting bones. And then if I go farther forward, so be it, maybe that's useful. You know, I find if I go forward and I keep kind of going, aiming for what I think is the range, then I get a little bit of pinch, even if it doesn't look like it's pinch, it's still kind of long. There's some kind of shortening in the back, like the fibers get a little tighter. So, you know, even if you're sitting up and you're tilting your ear to your shoulder and just getting this nice shift in the back, that might be a better quality for you, you know, versus trying to get your forehead on the chair seat. Although what I know I miss on this is I want more hip stretch. So I'm just taking a basic hip opener. Okay, now feel when you come back up, although it was maybe a slight move, the right leg still holds the sand. Stretch the left foot under the chair to the wall. Turn to the right and add the ball under that right leg and use the reach. We'll go a little quicker on this side because we know where we're arriving is the rotation. So you might enjoy just that swift turn. Sometimes it's nice just to less analysis and just go right into, well, a right side rotation. Yeah, feel how the ribs turn. Now push into the foot. Hopefully the toes are up. Feel if you're leaning into the right hand or if you can feel both sitting bones. Feel the arrival of inhale, exhale. Bring the left arm up to the chair, seat, and bend your elbow, and using your weight of your head to your hand, or maybe you hold the back bar, you'll release the right arm behind your back so the palm is open. But that might be a really nice quality for you to evaluate, is just this, just the hand is behind you, palm open. Right, the front of the hand, the knuckles, that part is at the back. If you are kind of clinging to effort in the position, sometimes stay in the pose, but sometimes time will happen. Sometimes time happens. And when I'm rotating to the right here, I'm clutching at some of the leg muscles. I'm clinging in there. So you're trying to get smooth reaches through your bones. So less is more, right? Just feel the foot at the wall, feel the rotation, breathe. You know, left hand down the chair seat, slide back up to center, turn so that you shift the left foot crossing in front of the right shin. The bag goes to the left leg, ball may be needed, maybe not. Yeah, and you might get a feeling here of using that chair to help your spine sense. I feel like more of my mid-body sensibility. I don't really connect deep to my spine here, but it is part of the process of working with that lumbar tone. Okay, so center, you might go forward, you might put your head on the chair seat, you might enjoy that type of intensity. And certainly if I lower down, I'm going to feel more stretch in my legs. If I'm up, it's pretty minimal. But I'm okay, I'm happy working on posturing, centering the spine and the hip joints. It's fine just to meditate on that too. Okay, and we'll get plenty of hip work. So when you're feeling this last few moments of centering the seat, feel the sitting bones. If they tilt forward, try to bring it back to center. Okay, now before we turn to cat-cow, just kind of come back upright. So if you're already sitting up tall, then you're there. But just notice your natural back arch, right? Like when you're seated, how your back arch is, how the weight is in the seat. And then slide the sand off and turn so that you're facing away from the chair, and your knees, well, you could just leave the blanket like this. You don't need to move stuff around. But as your hands are under, you're going to let your toes hook under. Make sure you're distant enough away from the chair and you don't push into it much. But as you round your back, feel the stretch into your back. Really work stretching it, chin to chest. Inhale, naturally arch the spine. Exhale, hollow the belly and breathe. This could be a nice breath pattern where you use nose, mouth breathing, right? You get both of them going. Exhale in the mouth pattern, inhale through the nose. Okay. So now when we come back to table, so that's neutral, it's not quite the arch. Step the right foot forward. Okay, you might like the blanket to be not quite so flat. You might bulk it up under your left knee. You might decide not to really use the blanket. You could slide it away. I don't mind the padding, so I'll keep it. But as I lean forward, I'm stretching through not just my legs in a lunge, but also it's pushing up into my hip, right? And that's going to affect my lower back. So use a couple blocks here. You might try without and go, oh, I can tolerate, but you might try and it might bring you a little bit of support, just enough so you can get a little higher up. Just caution the knee doesn't go too far forward. Some of us like the knee to angle a little forward to get the keen stretch in the left thigh. Right, if I'm back with my right knee, my left quad doesn't get a lot of stretch. And if you come up off the blanket with the left knee, that still might not be the same, right? So you might be fine with your knee above the ankle with your lifted lunge. So let's all give a try with lifting the left knee. So the hands probably have to be on something to get you a little height. Okay, feel that push through the back heel. All right, and now as you get a feeling of that length of that left front thigh, come to up dog. So knee down, right knee back. Just think about it as knees. Hands could be on the floor or they could be on flat blocks. If you're short-ish, the blocks will feel really good because you'll feel a little taller with them. So I slide them in under my palms flat and then lean forward. This just brings the floor up to me, and so I get a little greater stretch in my core. So I like the blocks. Not everyone does. Make sure they don't slip too much. Feel where there's that spine sensation, right? And then bend your elbows back and then come back up to table. And then I want you to round your back to cat and then lean back forward to up dog. So let's say you're not using blocks for this. You just decided that they hurt your wrists or something. So you could still find, it's a little different. It's not quite as much of a stomach stretch for me, but it's a little easier on my wrist for me. So when you're reaching in the torso, get a feel of that lift of the crown of your head. Now avoid rounding the back here. I don't think you can do much rounding here on the back muscles. Okay, now keep the spirit of that spine. Keep spine spirit. And then when you move back to table, step the left foot forward, use blocks under your hands. And as you lean forward, you can feel, if you want to keep your knee on a blanket, that's great. It might not be great for you. You might need to get the knee up. So try to get compact with the hips. So I find if I lift my back knee, it's a little easier to get my hips compact so I don't swivel my right hip a little bit or my left buttock. So get a feeling like you're kind of in a box here. It's a boxed lunge. Lunges and boxes. Okay. Boxed lunge. So when you lean forward, lift the back knee. You got to have your toes under, I believe. I don't think it'll work well with your top of your foot down. But when you're leaning, the head goes forward, right? You can't get the crown up very well. So I want you to feel when that back heel presses. Sorry, the ball of the foot pushes and your heel's trying to press back. It's not on the floor. It springs up. And then use the blocks, get them highest as you can get so that you have a little more revolution through the ribs to turn to the right. And then as you pivot to the right, toes turning in towards, you bring your upper body to the right, you're in a wide stance, shift back. If your chair still needs to be on your mat, but be careful that the legs of the chair don't bother you. So if it is that way, you can push your chair around, you can get yourself in the middle of the span of the legs of the chair. But feel where you're basically a little lifted here with your blocks. Okay, there'll be no twisting game here with the spine, but maximize the movement of the hips back. Bring the blocks low as you can, and then push them out in front and let your arms reach. Shoulder width is fine, a little wider is okay, but try to keep it narrow. Head down between the arms and feeling that the spine it's kind of this narrow dropping kind of bridge right out of the neck. So you're trying to let that floating bridge release down into the neck. Yeah, and the vertebrae has this nice kind of traction. So this is so good for our back, right? It's the opposite of narrowing and wedging in the spine, which is like, we don't want that to happen if possible. As little of that as possible. So feel that natural reach with the armpit chest, stretching the spinal muscles, reaching. If your legs are really dropping back, like your knees are, you're hyperextending, just take a little micro bend of your knees. And then what you'll feel with that is the pelvic floor has a little more tone. So I think some of this pushback, hyperextension, in some ways it's not really helping the pelvic floor tone. So feel a little bend, it's not very big, but you can feel that pulls up into the thigh muscle. Back muscles move. Just with breath, take a few more moments here. Okay, now when you keep that back, your tush is back, right? It's pushing back. So now you're going to slide the blocks in closer so you can get back up to the middle and then pivot. So let's just turn to the chair. You can shift your blocks. I don't think they're going to be super important in the moment, but turn. And I want you to pivot the back foot to parallel. The blankie, I believe, can go away. And when you turn the back foot towards towards the wall, let's try to get our hands at the wall. Okay, so the back leg is stretching into the calf, right? You can feel the left calf. My hands reach up. This is a really full, challenging reach. It's not an easy thing to muster up. So if the back foot is sliding, guess what? You can bend the front knee, use your hands on the chair, bring it in a little bit. That's completely great. We don't want to be slip and sliding into the splits. But what I'm encouraging is that this mid body, if I lengthen the right leg, straighten it out a little bit, I can get some of this middle space to try to activate. Okay, now when you lower your hand, your right hand down to the chair seat, just kind of feel that position of the right hand down. Okay, turn the back foot out to the left side, so it pivots, and bring the left arm up into triangle. Let's try to give it a triangle tries. Okay, so as the right inner thigh stretches, keep a disciplined lift with the hand. That could be your only focus, is that stretching a part of the chest here. Yeah, breathing. Yeah, the thighs are going to have this kind of fun dance of muscularization right into the upper inner leg. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is kind of pull up my quadricep, like I'm contracting my right quadricep up into the hip. I mean, it's not going in my hip. I know it's separate, but trying to keep things lifting up from the ground. That's our life story, isn't it? Lower the left hand to the chair, unless you want to go to the wall, because this is a greater reach, right? But if you're feeling a little tired, bring the hand down. Turn the back foot to parallel. Bring the right hand to the wall. Doesn't have to be pushing, it's just my fingers are spread out. And then turn to the right with that right hand. So we still have the same leg at the bottom. I know it's still the same right foot down. Well, both feet are down, I guess, but right foot is under the chair. So pivot into revolved triangle. Feel where that reaches through the back half. Now your back leg might not be parallel. The foot might not be straight forward. It might be a little bit out. Okay, now get that right hand back to the wall. Okay. Slide the right foot back so you can see the foot underneath. It's not hiding under the chair anymore. You use your left hand on the chair, right hand at the wall. Okay. And now you're going to lower the right hand down and lift the left leg up. Okay, now this could be an issue with hitting the wall, couldn't it, with your head? So you might have to shift your chair back, but I want you to use the chair for this balance. So your left leg is up. And I'm just gonna work with pivoting, just like we did in triangle, but now the bottom leg, the back leg is not on the floor, right, with the foot, it's in the air. So your legs might be kind of dancing around at the base, just trying to feature the left. So the left arm could go up, it could stay on your hip. You could come up and down and wait around. This might be a good break for you to take a moment to just figure out your balance. But when you feel that left leg lifting, see if you can manage the circulation here in the lower abdomen. So left leg lifts, there's always kind of there's no dispute that you want to try to access the core, but it's kind of empty in this position to figure out how to work it. So turn so that your navel faces downwards, the left foot is up, but it's not pivoting your hip open. And then stretch that left foot back. And just come back on both tippy toes. So both feet are back, your heels are lifting, your hands are pushing. It's kind of almost a plank pose, but it's easier, right? Because your hips are piked back. Feel the legs stretch back. This is not an up dog. I want you to have your feet close together. Lean a little forward, push into your hands. Use your abdominal muscles to hold this position. Try to feel if you can activate the middle. Left foot steps under the chair seat, so that's nice. It's on the floor though, the foot is not stuck to your chair seat. The back foot reaching, the feet are in two different tracks. This could be challenging. You might get stuck on one track. Okay. Reach your hands to the wall. You could just have like you barely get your palms to the wall. I just have my fingers stretching. This way I'm kind of emphasizing the reach in my back. Yeah, and maybe the hips are kind of shifting right. You're challenging with the left hamstring or your knee. So you might do a little micro bend and really work that underlying left leg. Left hand down to the chair seat. Pivot the right foot open and bring the right arm up into this side bend. It is a side bend, triangle pose. Right, and it's a pose that, let's say you were to be in this for, let's say 20 minutes or something, you would start to acknowledge these middle muscles a little more. You use less of the extremities because they would actually get tingly, they would feel, discomfort holding so long. So you have to use your the corridors, and work on that inner lift, just breathing. It only helps. Okay, take that right hand to, you could go wall, you could go chair, you can kind of feel as you pivot the back foot to straight toes towards the wall. You might work a bit with, okay, I'm going to reach the wall with both finger pads, both hands, and then right hand down, but you're taking the left arm up now. You're turning to that left hip and lifting the arm up to rotate. If this hurts your shoulder, arm goes behind you. Never a problem. And as you rotate, it's kind of a different coordination right in the middle, but it's always worth using your middle a lot with these shapes. Otherwise, your limbs just get so tired, the joints get tired. So feel if you can work with that middle. If your head gets a little achy in the neck, turn your head to the right and down. Okay, now reach the left hand back to the wall. These reaches might be easier on your shoulders than these reaches, right? So just kind of notice it's a massive flexibility curve to do these, right? With the arms up to the wall. Okay, so now we're going to scoot that left foot so it's right underneath your vision, right below the knee, right? So my hand could be on the chair, my hands could be at the wall, but at some point you're working to lift the back leg. So let's say you're too close to the wall, you can move your chair away, you can move a little back. You're going to have a little more challenge getting the wall then. So when you lift the right leg up, turn through that right thigh. So see, you don't have to use the wall, right? You could use the bar of the chair on this one as well, if it's not against the wall. But each side will display a different challenge, I think, for your joints. So give them each the same instruction. Like we're going back to elementary with our body awareness. We feel the heel pressing. We're trying to lift up out of the heel, pivoting to the right, and maybe the right arm goes up, maybe you fall out of it, but you're trying to work with rotation with your head, looking up towards the right hand. Oh my goodness, right? It's a lot of work. It's never ending that it's an operation of anxiety and concentration, right? So stay with the awareness, even if you stay with your right hand on your hip, or that's okay too. You can work with this turn of the ribs. So let's say you have it like that. I was facing the way you can't see, but if you have your hand on the hip, you can still work with this turn of the ribs. This is kind of helpful. My hand is on the hip. I like that version. Okay, so the breath could be kind of held up here, like you're waiting to breathe. Yeah, all of us kind of feel a challenge on this one. So turn back towards the hands on the chair. Shift the right thigh so the toes face down. Don't give up quite yet because you have the back leg lifting. Breathe. Okay, and then lower the right foot down. Take a moment where your hands are holding the sides of the chair. If your chair is right against the wall, slide it back. Okay, toes both back, feet both back. So that means 10 of them. And then lean forward, feel a natural scoop of the spine. See if you can sustain that for several moments. Feel the arch, the lift of the chest. Okay, now center back, and we're going to take our feet to the chair, and then we're going to take the chair away from the wall, and I want you to put it kind of anywhere in the middle of your mat. I'm going to face the back bar of the chair to you. I think that might be easiest for most of us today with this one, because it's almost everyone has done these specific Iyengar inspired twists, but what I always find funny about them is that I feel sort of like my body's kind of big on the chair when I sit on the side, but this is how they're meant to be taught. So you can keep looking for a textbook that's not that way, but you'll keep coming across it. So you can use a block between your knees or a ball. So I want you to have the back bar, so your left hip is against, if you look at the chair seat, you know, you're at the right side of the chair with your seat. Left hip is against it. I'm turning, so my knees are pointing away and I've got the ball between them. So why I'm using the chair this way, well, let's just do it. But I'm using the bar so I can work on my rib section. And I want to work it on the bar because it can kind of pull me up. It's not that high, right? Some of you might actually have a chair that's a little higher with the back of the chair. This doesn't work very well if you've got a big wooden chair with a tall back. I don't think that would work good. So have your feet on either block. Some of you, if you're short and your feet can barely touch down, you got to use a block under each foot, just an FYI. So as you push a little bit into the ball, I want you to try squeezing it like 25% when you do this. Left hand on the bar of the chair. Okay, easy, right? We can get the knees, they stay right across from each other. Now, right hand to the chair. That's when the right knee will start to swivel forward. So I want you to squeeze the ball as much as you need to so that the legs don't shift. You don't want to shift into first or second. You want to stay right there at neutral. So hands are going to hold the sides of the chair. So even if you have a chair that still has the center in it, you know, you haven't had the back of it kicked out, this works just fine. You're still holding the chair. The difference when you have that back kicked out is you can kind of grip into it a little bit more. So you're going to pull, and I want you to pull with the right hand and push in with the left hand to the bar of the chair, the back of the chair. And then when you're pulling and pushing, you want to squeeze the ball and make light of how you sit into it. Make light of it. See if you can kind of relax your bum on the chair. Squeeze the ball, keep the spine up, and it's rotating into the ribs. Okay, now let the breath become just a few moments here of focus. So maybe close your eyes and notice the breath rush, right? the cumulative quality of breathing here, I think, is a little bit mysterious because when you twist and breathe, it's definitely stifled. But this is where you can strengthen your lungs. So when you breathe in through the nose, try to breathe in for many, many counts. Maybe you're 4, 5, 6. And then pause, hold, exhale, and you might get a little more twist. And now let go of the grip. We're going to change sides. So in between, I want you to turn to the back of the chair, away from the bar, right? And then just switch, walk over to the other side. If you feel like standing up, that's okay too. Just switch to the other side is fine. But when you have the ball, I think this challenge with how small the chair seat is for you when you're on the side, it also kind of gets your knee angle so they can't really split out. There's just no way you could split your knees when you have to sit like this. You'd fall over. So I suppose it's kind of a cruel way to keep you up on the chair. Some of these techniques are taught. I think it's funny. But my feet are parallel, and you might find that you kind of drop into your lumbar curve. So use that right hand on the chair first. Remember the right hand going onto the chair when you have the right hip next to the chair. Some of us might scoot to the edge of the chair a little bit more so our seat is kind of on the edge. Some are going to sit farther back. Okay? It's all up to you. I mean, if I sit to the edge, I like it more. It's just more inspiring. It's not harder, but I find it's a little more ripening in the pose. If I'm back, I'm kind of rounding. I can't help it. So right hand on the bar, left hand, of course, has to go, but you are kind of going, it's kind of a faster version of it, but you be sure, use your vision to your knees, that the left knee is not sliding a little farther forward than the right. So that's why you've got something to squeeze. You know, if anything, you're almost trying to move the right knee a little bit up. And then that works on your obliques, right? So your stomach muscles is almost all the way up into past the lower core. And if you're doing it kind of internally, you might get a little shakiness through the adductors to do this, or maybe a lot. So what are we doing with the hands? We're pulling with the left, we're pushing with the right. Just be cautious how much you force that, because you can really work a lot in your back overly too. So pull with the left, push with the right, breathe. Yeah, and the feet might, you might get really warm in this pose. So feel where the spine is lifting, feel where the spine is turning. You can always close your eyes. Hope for the best. Yeah, and that internal conundrum is just taking time to slow down and breathe into it is helpful. Just on the physical level, maybe not the mental, psychological concentration, but the physique. Let's say you don't pull and push. Let's just say you hold. You kind of let go of those directions. You'll still feel like you get some work, but it is different when you pull and push, right? It's like this mid-body lung pressure changes. Okay, so there's a few more moments here. Just feel when you let go of the gripping cycle and you come back to turn towards the left side, towards your legs, center. Okay, feel where the ribs maybe push forwards. We all have our positives with this rib structure. Some of us are finding our way upright at last, or trying to be. Okay, remove the ball. I don't know if we'll need it again. And then carefully, you're going to just put your chair, I would put it to the back of your mat, because you'll use it really soon for your arm, if you like to. And then let's come down to our restorative basin here. Take a couple blankets back besides the feet of the chair. It's been pretty active actually for a full hour here. So let's get some nice full breathing restoratives too. Bolsters now finally at use. Okay, so I got my bolster in the middle. I got my feet at the wall. I really like to use feet at the wall for chest opener. And then I push a block underneath my back pelvis. And it's just about getting the right, the right orientation, isn't it? It could take you a little time to finagle that one. So sand could be thigh or it could be ribs. It could be either. Now, if this is pulling your ribs and you can't really like get relaxed in them, this might be too much. And so if you're feeling like this is just too much pressure right now, you've done a lot of work this whole class, you can soften it up, not have your feet at the wall. That's going to make it a little more intense. You could just be a little bit away from the wall, not quite so close. Yeah. So how you feel with your sand on the legs could be helpful, and it also could be hurtful for your back. So if this is too much back work, then if you put the sand here, I find it a little easier on my back because I could bend my knees any moment if it feels too much. So give yourself option in the next couple minutes here before we go to side sage. So we're preparing the ribs. The blanket could be too many. You might decide you want less than 2. Totally fine. But spread out the arms and relax your, I don't know if you can relax your opinions about your pose, but see if you can just rely on the props to support you. Just trust that they're going to do the right work and you can relax your body onto them. And hopefully you'll wish your alignment into what is proper. So if you do feel a real arch in your neck, I mean, not an arch, but a flexion, like the chin is pushing down, then maybe you will feel more comfortable with one blanket. Maybe you like the flexion. But spread the movement of breath 3 dimensions, right, in the body. We massage the organs with the movement of breath. Okay, now slide the sand away to the left, and you're going to go to side sage with the left side down. So just keep it simple. Scoop the feet in, knees bend. Just feel almost a half roll to the left, slide the block out, and then you'll roll the band of the ribs to the bolster. Well, it's already on there. And when I lean in, I like the ball inside the right, sometimes inside the thigh, inner thigh, sometimes towards the knee. Today it feels better in the knee. Just something that's a little bit of rebound. And when I lean in, I know the sand will be helpful. So you can let the left side of your head relax onto the blanket. You can use your right hand on the chair seat, or maybe not. Maybe it's on the side. And access the sand, if you have it, to the side. And with all this kind of intensive work we've done today, it's amazing how much we have kind of accomplished through the sequence. Use these slower, longer holds to kind of integrate that work inwards into the bones. And your head might be tilted a little to the back. You might have your head rolling so you really are onto your ear. And influence the support with full breaths. Now I'd like us to kind of keep this rib elongation and the posterior core strength next. So we'll slide the sand. And what we'll do is we'll rotate towards the bolster. So that would be abdomen downwards. Now the chair might be a little bit of it just might look ominous near your head. So I don't think it's going to add any dangers, but I would just push it back just in case somebody wants to bonk their head on their chair. Turn your bolster so it's behind you. So you're going to turn it straight back, so spine wise, and then lower down onto it and bring your hands to the blankets and your forehead to the hands, and emphasize the breathing into the downwards into the bolster. So my knees are relaxed. I'm not trying to lift up my knees and activate my legs, but you could. Some people might enjoy that, is lifting the knees and pushing into the wall. So I would just let the knees relax. So it's almost as if, you know, when you've done poses like child's pose, the knees relax apart. You could do that too. Just let them kind of sway a little bit open, just a tiny bit. Nothing aggressive on the knee at all. But the key would be to let your limbs and coordinate so your blanket is good for you here. Your limbs are resting and your belly is pushing into the props. And it might be like the right at the below the sternum, the xiphoid process might be where you're pushing in. So kind of at the apex of the ribs is where you get the most dent into the prop. But your work is on where the belly, the smooth muscle is moving, is you're trying to get that to push down. Right? In the beginning, we did the belly breath, you know, we were doing that squeeze with the ball. So this is not different. Just there's no ball. There's a belly ball. Okay. So continue for a few more. Get about 5 more breaths here, feeling that pulse. You come up with your head. Simple, simple, less pressure on the neck here. So slide the hands so they're besides the bolster. Elbows by your sides. Lift your head. Toes under. Help yourself back upwards. Shift your hips back and turn the bolster across, horizontal, and turn back to that side stage now on the other hip. Your chair might work out for you though. I'm not really exactly sure. I'm going to try it. So less efforting, okay, with moving things around. You got enough to do in this sequence with props, so you're pretty prop intelligent now. Okay. Oh, it worked out just fine. So when you have that reach, let the weight of your head lean. It could be a different neck perspective. You know, if this is the side you sleep on, if you tend to be a side sleeper, this side of the neck might feel like it needs more blanket. It's just got more flexibility. You pushed it up and stretched that side of the neck more. So I would try to tolerate what you have on the last side so you can get some balancing work going on. The best that you could do would be that. But if you need to modify it to what feels good for you, go for it. But feel where the length is with that left side. It's completely fine to not use the chair. You could have your arm on the side of you. You could have it relaxed besides your, and open the chest, have a little more movement with it. All is comfortable. You just need to find what is comfortable for you. And now feeling if the ribs are kind of held back from movement with your sand, that could happen. Try to kind of push through that. Yeah, use your breath as a strengthening practice, right, for your lungs. You can simply do nose breathing for that too. Yeah, we have the left leg. It's kind of a reaching back leg right now. So when you do take your hand off the chair or wherever it is, you're going to slide the sand to the side and then shift up. And I want you to take your bolster to the right side of your mat and bring your right foot close to the wall. I don't want you to push the wall with that foot, but as you take your left leg over to the bolster, too many blankets here. Shift the blanket away, so you're down to one, and you can use the sand on the exterior left leg. It hasn't had a whole lot of movement in the side of the leg. We did a little revolving triangle, but it was brief. So it was standing, so it was pretty energized. The tone of the leg was on, so you weren't able to kind of flush it. So the sand might be good towards the knee. You don't necessarily want it maybe on the hip, it might be too much, but you might like that too. And if you nudge the bolster with your right knee, that's fine. It could kind of shift the bolster so it's not perfectly straight on the side. And then enjoy the chest muscles relaxing open. If you can get that left shoulder down, that's great. And head could be center, could be turned left or right. And just explore movement of the head with releasing your neck. Same time, the shoulders are back. Breathing slow. Exhaling fully. And now where you get the feel of the left leg crossing over, see if you can manage that direction from the hip to the right, the left hip towards the right. Just study that for a few cycles of thought, just a few, whatever that might mean, cycles of thought. But you're kind of crafting that. That's the leg you're going to put weight on in just a moment. So you want to feel kind of what this does for the joint and then the side muscles of the leg. These get pretty worn down, right, with maturity. So, I mean, they're kind of squished when you walk and then more years and more years. So just let your back get these types of stretches, even if you roll around on your back and don't do anything really long holds, just get a feel of this sensation, slide the sand away. And then you can roll onto the back and bring the bolster to the left after you get settled into your back concentration. Bolster left, knees kind of scoot a little to the right, at least I like to. I like to keep it easy peasy for my knees to bend over to the left. Right leg crosses to the bolster. If the bolster is too low, you can add one of your blankets on top. Sometimes adding a block on top works for people, but that might be too high. But you know, if it matches your need, then you just use it, right? If you need that, you can put a block under the knee. This sometimes feels kind of nice because it gets this different type of sensation in the back, pulling and lengthening out of the back. Sand on, side of the leg towards the knee. And then when you use that ball, if you do use one, you want to place that so it kind of fits. Most of us think of it fitting at the base of the spine, at the sacrum, close. It might be close to the gluteal fold. It basically only squishes in one area. and that's it. And it ends up creating an expanse. It's a light expanse. And so, oh, little adjustment there. Okay, let the arms open. You know, breathe into a shift and feel if your spine has the right amount of turn. So one of the reasons I use the ball is so that I don't create my twist out of my lumbar, right? It kind of holds that lumbar area. I want my twist to come from my ribs, my thoracic. And that's also helpful for my vertebral discs. This position is. Probably reclining twists are going to be a little more soothing for the vertebrae. And then, you know, the seated twists are a little more activating. So you might, you know, if you do have a sore back at some point, that chair twist would be good, but really keep your spine up. This is a good one. But, you know, probably the really elementary chair twist is just a good go-to. Before your meal, right? You have to sit and do that position. And then rotate. I got a yoga chair at my eating table with a little meditation cushion on it, so I have a little bit of lift, but sometimes nice to have. But let your head turn to the right. Feel the weight into your left hip. Breathing a few moments here. Now, if your head is turned to the right, bring it back in center, or left for that matter. Slide the ball away. Let's take legs up at the wall, or if you want to do a chair shoulder stand. It's been a pretty active set, so you might find just getting the legs up to flush out and drain will be good, like a good muscle flush. So roll to the side, pull a blanket near the wall, then a bolster, take it right next to it so it's flat, it's not tilted. And then when you scoot your tush to the wall, you're gonna roll. Actually, you gotta get really close. If you're just a little bit away, it's not as good. So you wanna get obnoxiously close with your rear and then rotate to let the legs swing up and get a blanket. Your blanket probably could have been closer. For me, I could have had it closer to the bolster so I had more cushion to get upside down. Sometimes having some more bulk under you when you roll. And I just slid my bolster just a little bit away from the wall so that I can feel my seat closer. That feels good today. It's not always that way. Sometimes I like the opposite, but it feels a little bit more secure for that flush. If you need to put anything over you, if you're a little cool, you can add a blanket in a moment after you get your sand on your feet. I guess you can put a blanket over your feet and then a sand back up. That would be a little bit of prop management. So feel where the legs are separate. You might put your hands to the thighs. Make sure that the knees are not pushing in together. But you got to be careful not to just hyperextend for that reason. So you want to find maybe a little spacing out with your feet on the sand and then come into settling if this is your pose of choice right now. The key is to get those legs up and the arms lower than the heart. That's key, is arms are lower than the heart. And cycle the movement of breathing. And scan the awareness. If you have an eye pillow and that's on the eyes, you can still scan the awareness inside. This is somewhat similar to how we started, even though the legs were bending. You could feel a different frequency just in your awareness in your body right now. So notice it might be more vibrant. Just an awareness that has changed. And just be gentle with that shift. Internalize and breathe. You know, feel the abdomen as it maybe flows. And what side of the breath feels more length? Just notice it doesn't have to be one side over the other, as we expect exhalation should be longer, but maybe you have capacity to get the inhale pretty long too. It's a good way to strengthen the core, right? To get the legs upside down and work the diaphragm muscle against gravity. So the chair shoulder stand is really good for that one. It's a little more of a gravitational pull, and this one is also great because you got the bolster lifting up the pelvis. Now, let's give a few moments of moving the feet away from the wall with sand on them. You know, bend through the legs. Feel if you bend and it's in the position it puts weight on the hip flexors or the sitting bone. So I'm trying to get to work towards my sitting area, the seated, the glutes, versus my hip flexors. It's gonna take time to reset that. So just notice. So what might help you is to flow your feet away from the wall with your sand on the feet. And then you can feel that circulation shift to the back of your legs a lot. Right? So just let that be. Your hip flexors will probably take over. They'll try to. So bend your knees so you can feel the back muscles, your lower back. Try to stick with that for a moment. And then as you slide your sand away, then bring your feet to the wall and roll to the side. And really squeeze the knees in towards you when you roll to come up. They only probably are going to push out anyway, but instead of like pulling the hip flexors. Again, it's a reprogramming again, right? However you live for decades, you know, you're trying to reset a little bit of just your baseline experience with these joints. So you might place the hands so that they're at the top of the thighs, sit cross-legged, however which direction is good for you. Feel where the back is touching the wall. Maybe it's not any part of your spine, it's just your shoulder blades. That would be nice, right? Use the shoulder blades to keep the spine circulating nicely. And then let your hands relax on the lap of your thighs and the palms releasing open. And let's just feel where the spiraling of the breath is inside, the awareness. And we'll close practice with our hands gesture in front of the heart, palms together or hands layered over the heart muscle, inhaling together. And with exhalations, bowing into the